Hey, what's up guys? This is Anthony from Anthony's Customs, and it's time to talk about The Walking Dead. So, last week, a lot of people said it was the best episode ever. I said it was a good episode, but not the best. I still caught flack. I don't know what's going on. It's like, as soon as I say anything's not the best, people freak out. But that's okay. That's the nature of these sort of things. And you know what? Before I get into this episode, I just want to address something. In movies and in this show, and just in general, not particularly for this show, but just in media in general, as soon as something's based on the comics, it's almost as if people say it doesn't have to be good because it's the same as it was in the comics. That's not accurate, I don't think. It's not necessarily true. The things I think should be rooted in the comic, but I don't think they need to be exactly from that. So, for instance, something that happens in a comic, it has to happen in a certain way. It has to be kind of concise. You know, we only have so many frames and so many lines of text that we can convey something that we're conveying in a TV show. So I think that the TV shows should be held to a slightly higher standard. Or movies, in the case of the Marvel or DC movies, or anything like that. I think we shouldn't accept convenient writing or something that's particularly forced and obvious in the shows as much as we would accept it in the comics or graphic novels. That's just a general note that I thought I'd like to touch on. So let's get into this episode, which, by the way, I enjoyed very much. I thought this was one of the better episodes out of all of them. I really enjoyed this episode, and let me explain why. There was one horribly glaring thing that I didn't like about this episode, but it wasn't enough to detract from the whole episode. But this is why I like this episode, and I've been saying this all along. I guess most people don't agree with this sentiment or this mindset, I guess, is that I think they should spend more time not trying to do some overarching, serious, super maniacal storyline. I think we should get a smattering, at least, of these episodes where it's just the people surviving, just doing what they need to do to survive. Oftentimes in this show, and in similar shows too, we end up having these really convoluted and complex storylines, such as with the governor or the termites or things like that, where we don't actually see the people surviving the apocalypse. They're only dealing with these crazy storylines that don't really lend themselves to necessarily to the whole survival post-apocalyptic scenario. Which, you know, that's fine. We need an overarching goal. We need something to tie it all together. But I think more episodes like this one, where they're just going on runs, just doing the day-to-day stuff, when it's done well, like it was here, I think that's a much more enjoyable experience, at least when they're mixed in throughout. Not necessarily every episode, obviously. We need that glue to hold it all together. But I think we need these kind of episodes mixed in, and we don't often get those. And I really enjoyed this one because of that. We got to see Rick and Daryl interacting outside of these crazy, stupid, cannibal, all these other storylines that, I mean, I know we need them. That's the way it works. We need to have something to set the story up. But we need more of this. And that's why I like this. I'm probably repeating myself a little bit, but I really enjoyed the last night's episode. I thought it was really good, especially with Rick and Daryl. Did I say Carl earlier? I don't know. Lots of coffee. But I really liked the dynamic between Rick and Daryl. It was really entertaining, right? Like, did anybody not enjoy that? I can't imagine that's the case. They were really enjoyable to watch on screen. Even before Jesus showed up, they were really enjoyable. Just them interacting, them looking for stuff and interacting. I liked it. We didn't have to deal with all these one-liners of deepness. This faux serious, not serious, but I don't know. You probably get what I'm saying. This show is known for, at least from my perspective, I've heard other people say this too, a lot of people talking like people don't really talk in real life. You know, nobody sits there and has nothing but deep one-line back and forth conversations in real life. So it was nice in this episode to see it more practical. Or a couple, I guess they said months. They said it in the post-show, but during the show, it seemed like it was only a couple of weeks. Either way, no, because, well, the one lady said a few weeks, but it doesn't really matter. There's some time period before the giant zombie fight that made no sense to now. And so everybody's kind of in this more relaxed state of mind, which is a good thing for the episode, and it just worked well seeing them go out, look for supplies, deal with things. And it wasn't like it was in the prison or on the farm, it was just boring and monotonous. They went on a run, and that was the majority of the episode, and that is what I think worked so well. And then the new guy, Jesus, he's an interesting character. He's from the comics, I know. And like I said about the comics before, I don't think reading the comics should be a prerequisite for a show or a movie. So all these people that say you need to read the comics or you're not going to get the show, if that's the case, then the show's not doing a good job of being a show. So I'm not reading the comics. I don't read comics in general, but I'm not going to start reading the comics for this show. I want the show to be its own thing. And it should be. You shouldn't have to know the comics in order to appreciate the show. So that being said, this one thing that I'm gonna complain about this episode, which you guys all should too, I think, even if it is from the comics, I don't care. It shouldn't have happened. It shouldn't have happened in the show. So everything was good about this show, as far as I can think. Especially, before I get to the negative thing, Daryl is hilarious, right? Like, shaking up the pop can and throwing it at him, throwing it at Jesus. That was so funny. I literally lolled for that. So, things like that. It doesn't have to be 100% dark all the time. And I think it really benefited the show to have the talking back and forth and them acting like actual human beings. And then Daryl hitting the guy, like shrugging him off his shoulder in the car. It was just good. That kind of stuff is what, you need to balance it out, and I think that's why it worked. Okay, so back to the bad thing. The thing that I hated about this was, much like the scene where Carl drops his gun, and then Ron picks it up and gets all pissy. Which, I can tell people said, okay, it's from the comics, so it's okay, fine. But it didn't need to be shot the same way, and I feel like it probably was. Anyway, the van, going into the lake. Come on. First of all, why did Rick park it there? What was Rick doing with the van? He wasn't really accomplishing much as Daryl was chasing the guy. And then he ends up backing it in towards a lake. That's just weird. Like, why would you do that? And then, on top of that, they're fighting in the van, and somehow it gets put into neutral. So someone somehow accidentally stepped on the brake pedal while they're fighting. Sure, okay, I can get that. But not only was somebody stepping on the brake pedal at the time, but they happened to put the car in neutral with the gear, with the shift knob. Come on. That is just way too contrived, way too forced. It totally took me out of the episode for a little bit. I'm like, that's just, really? No, that can't be. That can't happen. And it did. But even leading to that, if you're in a survival situation, you're out looking for food, and they find a giant box truck or van or moving van or whatever it was, full of food and supplies, you don't keep going out to unknown areas. You get that stuff back home as soon as possible, as safely as possible. You don't go a different route to keep looking, because this is what happens. You end up losing your stuff. So that bugged me a little bit too. But those are very minor gripes for an otherwise really good episode. I enjoyed it a lot. I thought that the more serious notes between Coral and Zombie Lady, I always forget people's names when I'm doing these videos, but it doesn't matter, because here's the thing. Like I said before, I'm just talking to you guys like you're real people, not like I'm trying to do some kind of serious critique and I'm talking over your heads and trying to pretend like you're dumb. I know you're not. You're watching the same show I'm watching. You have the same credentials I have, so I'm not trying to go all crazy. Like, someone yelled at me for calling Abraham the Ginger in my last video. Why? He's got red hair. I call him the Ginger. I don't need to call him Abraham. See, I can't even get it right now. Anyway, all the serious notes with Michonne and Coral, those were all good. They worked out nicely. We now finally see Rick and Michonne do it a little bit, so that was good. I'm not like I needed to see them naked, but the romance thing, it felt like it was going to happen, and it did. So I'm glad that worked out. Just everything balanced out so nicely in this episode, and that's what I think we need more of. So I'm curious to know what you guys think, so let me know in the comment section below, and we'll talk about it a little bit, and then I will see you in the next video.